Ladies and gentlemen, we do have the new final release of the Atlas Intel polls. Now, there's some confusion. We thought a few days ago Atlas Intel had released their final polls, but they wanted to redo them because they kept getting a weird result in North Carolina. And their new final polls have changed, not in terms of the general popular vote. They've still got that +2 Trump. Remember, Atlas Intel has been very consistent with Trump leading the popular vote by around 2 to 3 points. That's what they were very accurate on in 2020. They were number one in terms of the final margin. They were within this point. Biden won by 4.2. I think they had Biden plus 4.5 in their final poll. So, taking a look at their updated battleground states, you do have Arizona, Trump sitting +5. This is the big change here. It is North Carolina. Trump goes to a +4. Their previous poll had Harris +1. We all thought it was kind of weird. Well, their new poll does have Trump +4. Trump sitting +4 in Nevada. I might be underrating Trump's chances in Nevada. Nevada might be maybe a little bit more of a safer state for Trump. That's not necessarily like, certainly you'd love all the other states to be safer than Nevada just because Nevada has the least amount of electoral votes and also doesn't tie into like the Rust Belt. But nonetheless, a +4 in Nevada is good. Georgia, Trump sitting +2 there. And then you do have, maybe a little bit of a letdown. You would have liked to have seen a bigger lead in Pennsylvania, but it is what it is. I mean, even if it's a 2 point lead, it's within the margin. Pennsylvania, Trump +1, Michigan, Trump +1. And then this new Atlas poll really tightened in Wisconsin. Wisconsin and Michigan are very tight. There's no doubt about it. But obviously, you will definitely take these polling numbers if you are Trump. That is up in every single swing state. And it does feel like Arizona. Remember, we got an Arizona poll, and you could say it's an outlier, but yesterday, that is in Real Clear Politics right now, that does have Trump up 8. And I do wonder if they've actually updated this. We will go ahead and take a look at Arizona, see if they've updated it with the new Atlas Intel polling. They haven't. So looks like Atlas's last poll was +4, so their new poll is +5. And again, they did back-to-back polls. Normally they don't do this, but I think it was because they got that result in North Carolina. Let's see if they still have that North Carolina here. Yeah, see Atlas Intel Harris +1 in North Carolina. So that's going to change to a Trump. Whatever it was +4, which is going to significantly affect the aggregate. The aggregate's probably going to go to like Trump +1.7. And it looks like Trump is trending in North Carolina to finish with a total average of like +2 in North Carolina. And then he'll probably win it by 3 if I had to guess. But Arizona, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Trump ended up winning Arizona by about 5 points at this point, 4 to 5 points, based off of how some of these numbers are and some of these recent polls we've seen. I mean, Rasmussen was only a +2. But again, we're just seeing more and more polls trend heavily in Trump's direction in Arizona. It's potentially going to be a 4 or 5 point win. And in that case, you're talking about maybe a Kerry Lake victory. Now, you don't want to get overconfident about it. Obviously, we think Kerry Lake's probably going to lose, but the potential could be there in terms of that. But nonetheless, this is a pretty normal trend on what we've seen. It's Michigan and Wisconsin are very close. In this poll, Pennsylvania is very close. We think Pennsylvania is a little bit more to the right of Michigan and Wisconsin. And then we do like Trump's chances in the Sun Belt, in Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada. I mean, this +4 is very, very, good to see. But just in general, you can see this is their final poll. Basically, the exact same thing they've had this entire cycle. It is Trump +2. That's just the general popular vote. I still think right now Trump is sitting, +2 in terms of the overall average on the popular vote. Or, no, +0.5. Yeah. Trump is sitting +0.5 in terms of the overall average. And it'll be interesting to see how this develops. If Morning Compost will do another poll. Reuters, I think that's their final poll. If you're Trump, you'll be happy with that Reuters Harris +1 just because of how they've pulled. I mean, that was like their last poll was like Harris +4 and it went down to a +1, so you'll take that. The TIPP is tracking, so they'll probably release another poll tomorrow and then maybe like 3 or 4 polls up until the election. But yeah, this is basically it. I mean, if we do go into election day with Trump up in just the regular popular vote, it's not to say he's a guaranteed to win it, but it certainly is very, very, very good news when it comes to that. So obviously we'll have to continue to track it. But the big news this afternoon was Atlas releasing their new final battleground polls. Again, I think it was because of the North Carolina numbers they were getting throughout the entire cycle. They were weird. You could say, well, why would they do another poll if that's just their numbers? I mean, obviously they thought the numbers were wrong. There was a flaw in their polling, and they've updated it. And it's not just a Republican thing. I mean, yes, North Carolina's gotten more Republican in these new polls, but I think Wisconsin's come down. If you look at their other poll, I'm actually interested to look at that. When you look at Wisconsin, what was their previous poll in Wisconsin? They had it as a tie, so it really didn't affect it. What was their poll in Michigan? Trump plus one. So it basically stays the same. Yeah, so really only North Carolina changes there when it comes to that. How about this? A Trump plus six in Pennsylvania. I wonder if this will get added to um, echelon. I think that will get added. Boy, imagine if this gets added here. You would imagine they would put it in, but that's going to significantly affect it if this does get added. This new Trump plus six poll, it's probably going to move to like a Trump plus around 1.4, 1.5, and this affects the betting. So you really want to see these polls get added to Real Clear Politics. In terms of that, we had JD Vance go on Rogan. I'm probably going to be talking about that maybe in my live stream. But this is the other big thing that came out. So this is the Gallup Party ID update, and you can see it has swung more Democrat. But the important thing here, you look at the independent leaners, it's Dem plus one. This is just the snapshot of where it currently is. What Gallup's going to do, I think, and this is what they did during their last dump, because I reacted to it and I was like, this is not good news when you look at the initial dump, but then they average it all out. So I think they're going to average it all out. And my guess is the final result is going to be a Republican plus one, plus two, or plus three electorate, somewhere around there. Even these numbers, this is just a snapshot. They do it half a month. You can see the 14th through the 27th, so basically 2 weeks of polling. They will release their final numbers. This is just a snapshot within the last 2 weeks. So you look at this and it's like, wow, it's turned Democrat. Well, we saw that happen. I think at the end of September when it was really Democrat, it was like plus six or plus seven, but the overall average is still pro-Republican. So let's wait for them to release their final numbers. And with what we've seen in terms of their data in the past like few months, it does seem like it's going to be a pro-Republican. And I'm going to talk about that when it comes out, and I'm going to explain all of it, but it's going to be very, very good if it is, even if it's plus one Democrat, which is what this is. You can see that, since their last poll, the Dems gained six, Republicans lost two. That's not what you want to see. But again, this is just a snapshot. It's not the overall average. They're going to use the overall average in their final numbers, and that's what is very accurate. It's the average. It's not just the final snapshot. So we will have to see what their overall average is. Even if it was a Democrat plus one, that would be not bad. But ideally, based off of their previous polling, I think the final average is going to be at least Republican plus one to plus two, which would be amazing, because you don't want to say that would guarantee Trump a popular vote victory. Again, once we get the actual numbers, the final numbers, I'll explain all of it, but it's very, very good. Even if it's plus one Democrat, it's a little bit of a letdown based on how good the polling has been in the past with Gallup, like the past few months. I don't think it's going to be plus one Democrat, but even if it is, that's acceptable for a Trump victory. There's no doubt about it. But either way, I will update, and that doesn't surprise me that it swung, because normally those things swing a lot. It's about the overall average. That's what we're really looking at. How about this big news? Real Clear Politics moving New Hampshire from lean Harris to toss up. Now, to be fair, Real Clear Politics does also have, if you look at this is where you can find this. New Hampshire has been moved. They moved Minnesota to a toss up. And at this point, I'm not sure, because they had New Hampshire as a toss up, then they moved it. They had Virginia as a toss up, they moved it. They had Minnesota as a toss up, they moved it. Then they moved Minnesota back. But when it comes to this, I would probably have Minnesota lean Dem right now. I would still put Virginia lean Dem. Having New Hampshire as a toss up, I could maybe understand it. By the way, this is not the polling average in New Hampshire. This is just the national polling average. So Trump is sitting plus 0.4 in terms of the national polling average. See, if you go to New Hampshire, you're going to look at a Harris plus four. That's with the UMass Lowell poll that I'd like to see get knocked off. There were other polls. I guess they were not deemed good enough in New Hampshire to be added. I am interested in New Hampshire, taking a look at, what was it? This, to see if this is updated at all and see if it's moved. It really hasn't moved at all. It's like 82. It's like 82-18. Almost 80-20 basically in New Hampshire. So we'll see. We're watching New Hampshire. There's no doubt about it. I think that's probably the one state to watch. I know people are going to talk about Virginia. Trump was in New Mexico. Rasmussen, their final poll in New Mexico was a Harris plus 5. That's going to be very tough for Trump. Very, very tough to try and flip, a state that he's down by 5, and even visiting it, it's just not, it's very unlikely. I would say more so the game plan would be a New Hampshire or Virginia, with probably a higher chance in New Hampshire. But this is all speculation. I don't know the exact numbers. I don't know their internal numbers. Virginia was the state that we were talking about for the longest, but the reason New Hampshire is susceptible to a potential Republican flip is due to the amount of independent people that they have. Now, independent people are not normally a major voting block for Trump, just because of, when he presents himself to the media, they make him very divisive. But in this election, I think it's possible, with how unlikable Harris is as well. And you look at their approval ratings, they're very similar. So it wouldn't surprise me, based on the smaller population, if Trump was able to flip New Hampshire, which would definitely help things and definitely ease people's stress when it comes to giving Trump leeway to potentially lose the Rust Belt. Although I think Pennsylvania looks really good for Trump right now. But a worst case scenario would be losing the Rust Belt, and then you end up, if you take New Hampshire, you still win the election because you're at 272 at that point. So, the fact that Real Clear Politics has moved it, would I move it? I probably wouldn't. I would still have it. Well, I mean, it's subjective. It depends, your criteria for having a state lean Democrat versus toss up. There's been several polls that have been within the margin. If you view that as, if you deem that as acceptable to move it, then I guess. But for me, I would need to see like a few polls where it's like a tie or Trump +1. Then I would be fine with moving it. But personally, I still think it's a slight Democrat lean when it comes to that. You've also got, this is pretty crazy, vote preference given history of voting. This is from New York Times. Voted in the primaries in 2022 and 2024. The leader is Kamala. 2022 midterms, but not the primaries. It's even. 2020 general election only. This is why you cannot compare midterm results and the polls in the midterm, and that's what they've been doing, to the general election. The 2020 general election only. So these are people that only vote basically for Trump. That's why Trump is sitting +12 in terms of being the leader. And then with no voting record, you've got Trump sitting +19. There's a lot of fair weather Republicans that are really big Trump fans that really don't turn out in midterm elections. So you were getting some erroneous polls, but they're going to turn out for Trump. And when you're talking about no voting record, if +19 is right, I mean, listen, I don't think it's going to be +19, but that's a significant advantage for Trump. That is amazing news when you're talking about new voters going heavily for Trump. And I think this is just in swing states, by the way. It's not national, so it's even more of a kiss of death for Harris when looking at these numbers. But no voting record going almost to Trump by 20 points. That would be the story of the election. 2020 general only, so you're only voting in the bigger elections, the presidential elections, Trump +12. These are very, very good numbers when it comes to a Trump potential victory in terms of that. But either way, guys, this is basically what he's talking about. Battleground states poll. The fact that it's battleground Pennsylvania, it's just all the 7 battlegrounds. But in terms of the Atlas update, the Atlas dump, their final polls, really good numbers. There's no doubt about it. You like these numbers. You would like to be the Rust Belt maybe a little bit more in terms of an advantage for Trump. You would like to see that, but it's just going to be close. It is what it is. It's very obvious. The past 2 or 3 weeks, these states are all going to be really close. Maybe Pennsylvania offers Trump some wiggle room in terms of the average being +1, +1.5, but Michigan and Wisconsin are going to be basically even. That's just the reality of it. And by the way, really the CNN poll is to blame for those states even being in Harris's column right now. When you look at Real Clear Politics, I think it was especially Michigan, or maybe it was Wisconsin, I don't remember, but there's some outliers in both of those states. The overall vibe on Michigan and Wisconsin, I think both of them are going to be very slight Trump victories. When you look at all the polls combined, Trump is leading most of them, but then the big ones that Harris is up by 5 or 6, that's what's really swinging the average in terms of that. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.